very happy to have join us here on Flyers Daily. Following the culmination of a season, Flyers General Manager Chuck Fletcher. Chuck, how are you?
I'm doing well. Starting to get back to normal here a little bit. Been quite the sprint and the sudden death ending there, and just trying to get back to normal here as quickly as possible.
Now that you and the team have returned from bubble life, and I'm sure that the reassimilating back into the world, our very unique world right now, what was the experience like for you and for the team in total when you look back on it, not from a hockey perspective, just from, the way the NHL and they set up the whole situation?
Yeah, the NHL did a great job. I think everybody dealt with it a little bit differently. Some teams seem to adjust quicker than others. Personally, I thought it was tremendous. Free coffee every morning, Tim Hortons. Had a tennis courts, pickle courts, great gym, had a soccer stadium you could run around, run the steps. So it was a really nice setup from getting outside and getting exercise, all the hockey you could watch, and great food and luxurious hotels. So I can't complain at all. I think probably for the guys with young families, I'm sure it was tougher. My kids are older and have grown tired of my advice a long time ago. So my life is a little simpler, but really enjoyed it. The NHL did a great job, and it's really remarkable that we've been able to this time pull this thing off.
Well, the amazing thing, too, is it can really kind of galvanize a group and a young core as well. Chuck, this team had so many young components in these playoffs, like Konechny, Sanheim, Myers, Albe, Kubel, many other young players. How important for you is it for them that they got this valuable playoff experience, not to mention a 22-year-old goaltender in Carter Hart?
Well, that's what you hope. You can learn a lot from winning, but you certainly sometimes learn even more from losing. It stings. I think you see things that you need to do better as an individual, and certainly we see things we need to do better as an organization. So the key is to learn from those mistakes and be honest with yourself. But what you hope is that the experience of being in those high-pressure situations will give you a little bit more confidence the next time you face them. And I thought our young guys, like all our players, had some games were better than others, but certainly I thought acquitted themselves well. And we were one win away from getting to the Final Four. So you got to tip your hat to the young guys, to all the players, and hopefully this is something that will allow us to even take another step next year.
Chuck, having that goalie box kind of checked as a task list is very important. I compare it to the franchise quarterback in the NFL. And your old friend Brian Burke has mentioned that goaltending is 80% of hockey. Unless you don't have it, then it's 100%. How impressive was Carter's performance in this his first playoffs at 22 years of age?
Yeah, Carter obviously for the majority of games, and Brian Elliott for a couple as well. I thought, like everybody, there's always a bad goal here or there, but our goalies gave us a chance basically every game, made big saves, and that was a tough environment. We had stretches against the Islanders in particular where we had a hard time getting out of our zone, and we were relying on our goalies to make a lot of saves, and they did. And, it's as a tandem, they worked well together. They like each other. They supported each other. And look, coming off the 18-19 season when we used 7 goaltenders, 7 or 8, whatever it was, to have the stability that we had this year and the performance that we had this year was great, and it bodes well for the future.
Chuck, after the round robin games, it seemed like the team kind of never really clicked on all cylinders, at least offensively. Some real good shutdown performances defensively, in particular in that Montreal series. And I know it's difficult to kind of pinpoint why that is because of these unique circumstances. But how do you assess that element heading into another offseason and trying to improve the roster even more, seeing what you saw in these playoffs and getting that extra data?
Yeah, well, I think there were games that we generated chances and didn't finish. We weren't able to execute. There were games that we, in my opinion, let our defensive details slip and we turned pucks over. We got caught 3 guys in the OZ and gave them rush chances. There were games we just didn't have the puck enough, in part because we didn't play the game the right way. So, it's hard to score when you don't have the puck and you're defending all the time. But there were games we had looks and opportunities and we didn't finish. And whether that was bad luck or just, we didn't finish or the other goalie made saves, but there's no question we weren't able to generate really anywhere. The Hayes line, I thought, did a pretty good job generating chances. Our first line generated a lot of looks but didn't finish. Our bottom six didn't score a lot. So, we're going to have to get more depth of scoring up front. And, whether Patrick and Lindblom can be two answers to that problem, we'll find out. But I think we do have some guys in-house that can take on a bigger role and get back to health and help us score more. But clearly it was an issue. We weren't scoring enough goals in a lot of those games.
One of the big things and reason for the progress that you guys had year to year was the hire you made all the way back on April 15th of 2019. Hard to believe. That seems like an eternity ago. But Alain Vigneault, in his first year with the Flyers, he was a finalist for the Jack Adams. He came in second to Bruce Cassidy of the Bruins. What's impressed you most about Alain and about the way he does his job both on and off the ice?
Well, his preparation's tremendous. He comes to the rink every day with the game plan, and he executes it nearly flawlessly every day. And just as, the respect he commands, his presence, but because he's so organized and he has the experience he does, and the way he communicates with the players, there's very good buy-in, and he has a very good command of the room. So I'd say both the preparation and the command of the room allows him to get the players to play the way he wants them to play for the most part. And that's a great skill, and it's a hard skill to acquire, but he has it.
Yeah, it's weird. He's a bit of a mix of a player's coach and, kind of the commander. And that's rare. That's a hard balance, but you got to treat every player individually. Chuck, the offseason is going to be very unique. It's going to be shortened in some ways and certainly constrained financially with a flat cap at 81.5. And putting together a roster, it's always a puzzle. It's maybe a 1,000-piece puzzle. You got a 10,000-piece puzzle here. How do you go about making all these pieces fit with your RFAs, your pending UFAs, players knocking on the door to make the club? How do you kind of approach this offseason in a shorter time window to get business done?
Well, you just have to prioritize. Our priority will be on re-signing our own RFAs, getting those players signed to good contracts for both parties. We obviously have to resolve the number 2 and the number 3 goaltender situation, as both Elliott and Lyon are unrestricted. And then after that, we have to keep in mind that in the summer of 21 and the summer of 22, we have some key players that will be in need of new contracts too. So we have to balance things not only from a get ready for the 2021 season, but also how do we make sure we have the space we need to do what we have to do to keep our core together. So that'll be the focus, and we'll obviously talk to teams around the league and see if there are any sort of hockey trades that make sense. It seems like those are harder to do than they are to scheme up in your head, but with the flat cap here for the next couple of years, there may be more opportunities in that regard, and we'll certainly be active in pursuing what we can pursue to see if there's something that makes us better.
Cap space will be even more valuable. Two players that were in and out of your lineup in the postseason in particular, James Van Riemsdyk and Shane Gostisbehere. Now in a flat cap world, allocating those dollars is going to be very important to get the most out of your cap bang for your buck, if you will. So how do you move forward kind of in assessing those two guys in particular, and pretty much all the players, going forward here, and how you can kind of, as you said, you make those hockey trades with those guys kind of being healthy scratches? Are there certain players that you're looking to find maybe a different situation for and maybe get some relief in that regard?
Well, look, every player wants to play all the time, and if a player isn't going to fit into your team and isn't going to be a regular contributor, then I think you got to look at what's best for the player in the organization in every regard. Now, I think in Shane's case, it's a little bit hard. He was dealing with some health issues this year. He did get healthy. He just was never able to kind of get in the lineup on a consistent basis. And who's to say that wouldn't change with the full training camp if he comes back feeling 100% and is able to gain some confidence in camp and get his game going. That might translate differently next year. Van Riemsdyk was a player that, as the playoffs went on, he did play a bigger and bigger role. He was in the lineup consistently at the end, and actually his ice time continued to improve. He made an impact. So, both of those situations are fluid. They can change. So I guess I would just say, look, they're no different than anybody else. You just try to get a sense of where they're going to fit. If they're going to have important roles, then I don't think you have any issues. If they're not going to have important roles, then no different than any player on their team. I think you got to look at what's best for the player and the individual.
One of those players that could really give you guys a shot in the arm is Nolan Patrick. We know he missed the entire season dealing with the migraine issue. I can't think of a worse thing to have to deal with, by the way. He's a very skilled young player. He was taken number 2 for a reason. Perhaps could have been taken number 1 if he wasn't dealing with some injury stuff around the draft. Now, after missing this season, though, with the migraine issue, what's the update on his health? And secondly, as an RFA, how do you kind of approach that contract and structure it for a player that hasn't played, didn't play an entire shift for a season heading into his RFA year?
Well, in terms of his health, he's feeling better. This is the best he's felt in a long time. And he's skating, he's working out, golfing, living a normal life, sleeping much better based on our conversations with him. So, but until we get him back into faster paced contact environment, it'll be tough to know exactly where he's at, but he is progressing and things are pointing in the right direction. With respect to the contract, we'll have to sit down with the agent. There's different ways you can go about it. But really our priority has been, let's just get him back to full health. He's a young man that this quality of life was certainly diminished last year. Let's get him healthy. Let's get him enjoying life again. And once that happens, the hockey will follow. And if we can get him a healthy, happy Nolan Patrick back, we're going to have a hell of a hockey player to add to our team.
People don't realize how skilled he is, do they? He is. I talked to Angelo Ricci, your skills coach, and he's a guy that's worked out elite players, NHL players for decades. And he said just the stride, the hands, the complete package is there. Is it just a situation of getting into the NHL, staying healthy, and getting into a rhythm as a player, knowing he belongs?
Yeah, absolutely. I think he was trending the way a lot of young players trend. Your first 2 years in the league, I think he had 30 points each year, but he wasn't playing a massive role. He was learning the league. I mean, he was still really a boy, just a young kid. And certainly there's been a lot of players that have shown massive improvements in their 3rd and 4th and 5th year in the league. So I think he was trending the right way. What I like about Nolan, he has size, he has skill, he can shoot the puck. So he's got the offensive talent, but he's a pretty good player defensively too for his age. And, we were just really hopeful that going into last year, but certainly going forward, that if you can have Couturier, Nolan, and Kevin Hayes as a start down the middle, you have 3 guys that are all big guys with offensive skill who can play on the defensive side of the puck as well. And it gives you, 3 tough matchups for the other team. And, he's a guy that I think projects to have a very good career in this league. And, you look at the playoff series we just came through, they're fast, they're physical, and you need to make quick decisions on the ice in a high contact environment. And Nolan's a guy that can play that kind of hockey and had tremendous success in the playoffs in junior going back. So he's a guy that I think can really have a positive impact on this franchise going forward.
Yeah, I know. I'm looking forward to seeing him resume his career. I think he's a special talent. Oscar Lindblom, he made it all the way back. Wow, what a story. He got into 2 games after this emotional journey. Now, you extended his contract during the pause as well. What did it mean to you personally kind of to witness his story going all the way back from, kind of learning who the person was when you were hired to diagnosis to treatment and then getting back on the ice and ultimately playing NHL playoff hockey?
Yeah, I remember one of the first games I was here as general manager, he was a healthy scratch. And I remember speaking with Dave Haxtell and the coaching staff saying, look, you guys picked the lineup, but if he isn't going to play, I'm going to send him down to Lehigh Valley. I mean, he's a young kid. May as well have him playing 20 minutes a night in Lehigh Valley versus eating popcorn and up in the press box. And, from there, he had a massive second half in 18-19. He was obviously, I think, leading our team in goals at the time that he got the really unfortunate news of the cancer diagnosis. And then from there, his whole world, changed dramatically. But just the courage and the positive attitude that he attacked his treatments and his rehab with have been remarkable. And to think that, that he was back playing hockey and basically in August is remarkable. And, his first game, I thought he played okay from a hockey perspective, but it was just amazing he was out there. By the end of the second game, I thought he was one of our top 3 forwards. So if he can do that in 2 games, after 9 months of fighting cancer and not playing and not really being in game shape. How exciting is it going into next year to think of where he can get to? And a guy that was close to a 30-goal pace, when his season ended in December. So we talk about the goal scoring woes we had in the playoff. Well, you arguably might be adding your best goal scorer to the lineup next year for nothing. And he's already signed for 3 years. So, we're optimistic. He's optimistic. You never know how the world ends up, as we've seen this year, so many different ways. But we're very excited about the future and Oscar's important role in this franchise going forward.
Yeah, to me, he's the best story of 2020 in a year that we'd like to, kind of crumple up and throw in the waste can. He's been a tremendous story. As you prepare, are the phones ringing a lot already? I know teams, once they're knocked out, they were able to wheel and deal, and we've seen some deals even in the division with the Penguins making that acquisition of Kasperi Kapanen, amongst others. Have the phones been ringing for the GMs, and is it going to be a pretty active market, you think?
Well, the funny thing is, when you're playing, teams are usually reluctant to call you because you're still playing. So I made a few calls just because you have a lot of time when you're sitting in the bubble. And then the first few days after you get knocked out, nobody calls you because nobody wants to be that jerk that calls you after you've just been kicked in the head. But the last couple of days, the phones are starting to ring. And it's hard to say. Every year it's the same thing. There's a rush of calls as soon as the season's over. Everyone wants to see if there's a potential fit. Whether that leads to more activity, I believe it will, but time will tell. But certainly, we'll do our due diligence. We'll be in contact with everybody here after this. After our conversation here, I have a few people to call, and we'll get together with our hockey ops group and coaches next week, and just continue to get ready for potential trades, the draft, free agency, and everything is going to happen in the next 3 to 4 weeks. So it's going to be a really exciting month here.
All right, well, just leave the Zoom open, and I'll listen in, and I won't report anything.
As long as you're willing to give me advice, because I could use some, so that'd be good.
You don't want it from me. It's going to be a busy and frenetic offseason for sure, and thanks for doing this. Thanks for your availability all season long. It's been tremendous. We're looking forward to another great progressive step for the organization coming up next season, and we really appreciate you taking the time today.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you. Anytime.